Welcome to another episode of the Eric Crocker Show. Of course, I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back Eric Crocker. We're coming at you live and direct right here on YouTube, and a lot going on, a lot of talks about Trey Lance. So I brought on a special guest to discuss some of his thoughts, and it might be a little polar opposite of what we heard a couple of days ago from someone, a guest that came on. And I like to say, man, y'all weren't too kind to him. Y'all weren't too kind to him. But it was fun. Sparked a lot of debate, talk. I saw it all on social media. I, for one, I don't really engage in back and forth on Twitter. I used to. I don't anymore. So whatever somebody's opinion is, that's cool. On here, this is where we'll talk about it. This is where we'll discuss whatever my thoughts are, and I feel like this is a much better forum to just get our thoughts out, talk about it, bounce things off of each other, as opposed to going back and forth on social media. But you can find me there at Eric_Crocker. Yeah, let's get into it. 49er stuff, we got Trey Lance talk, and the things that we will be discussing today, you got just in hindsight, are the things that maybe 49ers should have done different or we wish they would have done differently. Trey Lance, is he auditioning for other teams? That's going to be a big part of today. You got some teams that might make sense. We'll bring up those teams as well. But to help me with all of that, we got none other than my guy. All right, we got Mr. Ted.
Hey, Croc. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here, chop it up with you. And just wanted to say congrats on winning the bracket for the 49ers content creators. That was a huge thing, I thought, beating out reporters and ultimately Grant Cohn in the finals. Congrats to you, man. You well deserved and big win.
That was one of my motivations for really diving back into getting on here and making sure that I'm on here more consistently, because I'm like, man, if people, and I don't want to say there's people just better than me at this, but I feel like there are and were a lot of people that put in a lot more work than I did to bring the 49ers terrific content. I mean, going the extra mile. There were guys on ground at the Senior Bowl, which I was at the Senior Bowl as well, but the Senior Bowl at the Combine, and I mean, they're on top of everything. They got a great social media presence. And me, I've kind of scaled back from giving my opinions on Twitter, and I keep it more towards Locked On 49ers with myself, Brad Peacock, and on my channel as well. But they motivated me to really get back into it, because I said, you know what? People really respect my work, my opinion. And I was like, man, that's pretty damn cool. So I was definitely, it wasn't where I was like parading it around like, hell yeah, number one. But I was like, man, people really mess with me. So, I owe it to the fans. I owe it to the listeners and when I say fans of the 49ers, but, and listeners, to make sure that I'm on here more consistently and bring that platform for, people that are either listening to the audio version or on YouTube. All right. But people can also find you on not just Twitter, where they can find you at TedH6, but also a writer for all 49ers on Fan Nation. And you also have your own YouTube channel, Ted Talks Ball. So make sure y'all go over there and you can find everything with my guy Ted over there. All right. So make sure you guys go subscribe to that channel. But let's get going. A lot of talk about Trey Lance. What is he? What isn't he? A lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth. It's getting pretty heated amongst fans. I was just on with Flav, where I have Flav come on this channel, and in the comments right now on that video, over 200 comments. 200 comments. So, a lot of people have different opinions one way or the other. And, I saw kind of everything going back and forth on social media. But I just want to get right now just your overall thoughts on Trey Lance, the quarterback.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to make any sweeping decisions off a guy where we've seen, less than 5 starts for them. We've seen a lot of great quarterbacks struggle through their first 5 starts. Then you have some notable exceptions like Herbert and Purdy, where they came in and sort of lit it up right away. But those are definitely the exceptions to the rule. So, when people ask me about Trey, I just say, look, he's TBD. He's to be determined. We need to find out what we have before another team does, because if he goes to another team, and I think most people agree he has a high potential ceiling, In other words, he's got high top speed running. He's tall. He's got a big arm. He's smart. He's hardworking. He seems to have a good attitude, humble. One of my only knocks about Trey might be he might be too humble. Quarterbacks need to have sort of that killer instinct, and he may be lacking that a little bit. That might be my only knock on Trey Lance. And quickness. Obviously, Purdy's got great short area quickness. Lance definitely does not match him in that area. But I think if he goes to another team and he reaches his ceiling, then it's something that Kyle's never going to live down, and we as fans will never hear the end of. And I think that we as fans is the bigger part because if Kyle really blows this, he may not be around that much longer. People have been tolerating Kyle because we've been getting to the NFC Championship game 3 out of the last 4 years and a Super Bowl, one of those years. But as soon as that goes away, we miss the playoffs once or twice. I think patience will grow a lot thinner with Kyle. I think it already sort of is. I'll speak for myself personally. I'm a big Shanahan fan. I'm a fan of Kyle. I don't want to fire him or anything like that. But he's made a lot of mistakes at the quarterback position, starting with passing on Patrick Mahomes for Solomon Thomas, then passing on Brady after the Super Bowl when he wanted to come retire here, allowing him to go to the Bucs instead and win a Super Bowl there, and passing on Mahomes for Cousins, passing on Brady for Jimmy G, not getting Stafford when he was available. I liked the Trey Lance pick at the time. I was a Fields guy, but it was like Fields 1A, Lance 1B. So I always felt like Lance had the higher ceiling, Fields had the higher floor. But one mistake, you want to know some things I would do differently. One thing I would do differently is I wouldn't have kept Jimmy G as the bridge QB. I think he was too raw to not have a bridge, but I think bringing in somebody like an Andy Dalton might have made a lot more sense, who's not a huge step down from Jimmy G. But the big thing is doesn't own the locker room, right? Because Kyle wanted to do this substitution package thing with Lance, and the locker room revolted, and they said, no, it's not fair. Jimmy drove us down, and then Lance gets all the credit for the touchdown. And, it just, to me, it's like if you're all bought in, everybody should just be like, hey, we're winning. Who cares who gets the credit? But everybody had emotional ties to Jimmy. And in hindsight, I think that was a big mistake. So, and then
you're not saying in the sense of the result of the season, right? Which that was an NFC Championship appearance, but more so for the development of a young quarterback, because I think those are the two different things that sometimes it's hard to differentiate. I remember during the time and when just you started hearing certain things and when it was clear, like, okay, I don't think Trey Lance is going to start, my mind already started kind of, the wheels started turning and starting to look ahead and saying, man, I thought, and I said this right away, I thought the 49ers would have been the best case scenario for any rookie, but it might not have been the best case for Trey Lance because he needed to play. There were a lot of things that he needed to experience. And having Jimmy Garoppolo on the team, a guy who, for whatever reason, fans think sucks. And I'm like, Jimmy doesn't suck. He's a good quarterback. And it'd be extremely difficult for any rookie quarterback, regardless of who you are, for any rookie quarterback to come in and just be, one, more beloved in the locker room than Jimmy Garoppolo, especially based on the things that he had gone through with his team. And then two, just the level of success that he has had in the sense of just winning. He has won a lot of games for the 49ers and with the 49ers. And I know we can turn to the playoffs and see some games where it's like, we didn't really win those because of Jimmy, right? But there were a lot of even regular season games and I think the players might factor that in more than the fans, where, man, look at these regular season games where Jimmy came through in the clutch here. Jimmy came through in the clutch here. Look what Jimmy did in this game. And, look at this battle here. And, I remember 2019, it was both the Arizona games. He's going for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And like those things, they see him play day in, day out, how he prepares. And I thought for a young guy like Lance, who needed to make some mistakes coming into that situation, it started to look like, and if you don't get rid of Jimmy, it can be a little tough. And I think it continued to kind of be tough. And I think the chatter around not just the locker room or whatever, but just the team in general, the media started to get a little weird. So I think in hindsight, that probably would be the first thing that I would do as well, kind of get rid of Jimmy, just so it's like, all right, the floor is yours. You're coming off of a season, or the 49ers will be coming off of a season where they only had 6 wins, as opposed to, all right, Trey Lance, now you're taking over for Jimmy G after just going to the NFC Championship game, and now the pressure's all on you. I think that was a situation to take over.
Yeah, it made it tough, and the locker room didn't allow Kyle to do what he wanted to do, and I think yeah, it was a mistake in hindsight, and I'll go even further and say if we all believe that Purdy was our best quarterback in 2022, then why did two quarterbacks have to get injured for him to come in and play? Um, so, I mean, I think all this saying that, like, oh, Kyle will pick the best QB in the competition, I have my doubts about that because of that. So, um, I hope there is a competition. I hope it's fair and I hope it's open. And I hope Brock Purdy's healthy and ready to play. I also want to make sure that people know that just because I'm sort of team Lance, if you will, I have a preference toward Lance, what I think he can be, not necessarily what he's shown so far. I think he's shown flashes, but the consistency hasn't been there. But that doesn't mean I hate Brock Purdy. And I don't really hate Jimmy G. I talked a lot of said bad things about him, but I would say he's average to below average, right? I mean, and then
I wouldn't
fourth
say
quarter
below
playoff games,
average.
you wouldn't say below average. Okay,
No,
all right,
I'd say that Jimmy Garoppolo's a solid starting NFL quarterback.
okay.
Now, I won't go further than that, you know, but as far as like, if he's my quarterback and you can guarantee that he's going to play an entire season, I say your season is probably going to go well. And obviously, we'll get a chance to really see that with the rate, maybe with Las Vegas, and we'll kind of get into that. But ultimately, I feel confident that they will do well. Now, again, he won't light the world on fire. There's games that'll probably be a lot closer than they have to be, but ultimately, you'll win games, and I can see that happening with them. I did see some comments in the chat about a quarterback competition, Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo year one. I don't think there was ever a competition. What it sounds like happened when Kyle talks about it is that Jimmy Garoppolo was the starter, and he was going to be the starter unless Trey Lance just came out and just lit the world on fire and was just far better than him. And actually, Trey Lance came in and was lighting the world on fire to the point where Kyle's like, maybe we will have to start the rookie. And then the rookies started to come back down to earth, and he's like, "Okay, nope, we're good. We're good with Jimmy Garoppolo." And again, I think those things as well is kind of difficult for a young guy, right? Where it's like, "Man, I'm lighting it up," and then the moment I have a couple down practices, is like, "Oh, yep, that's why he's the backup." Instead of, "Hey, okay, you're lighting it up. You have some down practice. Let's start to try to build back up." And let's give him that confidence. And I don't think he ever got that. So yeah, technically there was never a competition then, and I saw, I heard you just talk about a competition between Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold. And I don't think the only competition right now, as it feels, is for really QB2. So that kind of brings me to my next thought, and that is, do you believe that Trey Lance is auditioning for other teams? And I think it starts with the Las Vegas Raiders, a team who they have Jimmy Garoppolo, but he still hasn't been cleared. And I'm pretty sure they're assuming that he will. But they have like this thing where there's no guarantees if he doesn't pass his physical. And ultimately, they can either let him go or he has to play on a contract that's not guaranteed to him at all. Uh, would it make sense for them to be practicing against the 49ers? They see Trey Lance doing very well. Oh, man, this Trey Lance is lighting it up, and they're seeing it in preseason. They're like, man, then maybe he goes into the game, lights it up. Now, again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but let's say it looks like what we saw in the first preseason game against the Packers. And he throws, 5 or 6 passes. He completes 4 or 5 of them. One's a bomb for a touchdown, looks good. And you're like, okay, is this somebody that we might look to long term? So we'll kind of get into specific teams, but do you think that right now, and even in the minds of the 49ers, that Trey Lance is auditioning for other teams during training camp and the preseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, I think he's auditioning for other teams. He's auditioning for our team. I think there's been a lot of assumptions that Brock Purdy will be ready week one, and it's pointing that way, and we're all hoping for that. But the more he misses, he's already missed OTAs and minicamp, and the more he misses of, like, say, training camp and preseason, the harder it'll be just to pop him in there week one. So I'm not one of the people saying that he will be there week one. I mean, personally, we've heard a lot of people talk about when Purdy will be ready. We've heard John Lynch say he thought training camp. We heard Kyle say 6 to 8 months. The national media's got their own narrative they're running with. I had Dr. Nirav Pandya on my show, and he said week 3 at the soonest he thought. I had Dr. Jesse Morse on my show. He said he'd be surprised if Purdy starts week 1. I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Trey Lance is auditioning for everyone, for the 49ers, for the Vikings, the Raiders, maybe the Tennessee Titans, right? Rand Carthon went there. They're having some QB issues. Maybe I think we mentioned the Atlanta Falcons, Desmond Ridder, who knows how good he is. There's a lot of teams that could use a better QB. And I'm not saying Lance is yet, but I think a lot of people see what he could grow into be. And they might be a little more patient to work him up and get him there. But I do also think that Lance might be a little closer to Purdy right now than people think, just because we haven't seen Lance with CMC. We've barely seen him with Kittle. And I don't know if you saw, but Ryan Hensley came out with a stat recently where Brock Purdy was 58% when he was targeting any target other than CMC and Kittle, like everyone else. Ayuk, it was like 78% for CMC and Kittle, 67% for Ayuk. And if you lump in Ayuk with everyone else, they'd drop down to 58%. And the Lance haters really like to beat up Lance for his 55% completion rate. But then if you say that Purdy's at 58 when he's not, and also those guys are still on the field. So they're still helping you to get guys more open and draw attention away from your weapons, even if you're not targeting them, CMC and Kittle, that is. So I'm not one of those. And also now we know that Lance has revamped his mechanics, right? What reports we're hearing is better accuracy, quicker release, more touch on his balls, a lot of the things that he was missing. So I don't think it's such a slam dunk that Lance is right now worse than Purdy was in 2022. And we don't know that Purdy will be in 2023 what he was in 2022, especially missing all this camp OTAs. Well, our mini camp OTAs, and we'll see about training camp, but that's TBD.
Do you believe that? And 1 second, Terradome. Terradome said Ayuk 68%. You said 68 or 67%?
I said 67. Yeah, whatever.
All right, close enough.
Yeah.
Close. That's close, Terradome.
Let's split some hairs, Terradome. Yeah. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me like Terradome does.
So when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, do you think he wants Trey Lance to be good? And not for the team. I mean, obviously, you want everybody to be good. You want everybody to be great. But let's say Trey Lance goes in, and right now Kyle has it in his head. Brock Purdy's my quarterback. As soon as he's healthy, he's going to be on the field. He earned that opportunity last year with what he did. It was awesome. He ran the offense. Man, I like this kid. Great. And then all of a sudden, Trey Lance comes into training camp, and you start to see, oh man, this is why we draft. He's pushing the ball down the field. Man, he's more consistent throwing after now a second whole little segment type thing with the throwing coach, Jeff Christensen. And now all of a sudden he's more consistent throwing the ball. He's doing well. He's doing all those things, and he looks great. Do you think that'll actually almost be kind of a disaster for Kyle Shanahan? Because now he might actually have to give him an opportunity to either hang himself or really kind of compete against Brock Purdy, which I don't think he wants. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think he wants that. I think he's been pretty clear that Brock Purdy is the leader in the clubhouse if he's healthy. There's that saying, if you have two quarterbacks, then you have none. QB controversies can be brutal on locker rooms, on fan bases. We're seeing it in our fan base right now. It's pretty evenly split between Purdy folks and Lance folks, and it's tearing our fan base apart. And also there's like the whole Kyle ego question, right? I mean, does Kyle want to have a slightly inferior quarterback who just does whatever he says rather than somebody who's a little bit more gifted, who's going to do more off script and therefore detract from Kyle's scheme? And people are going to say, oh, Trey Lance won that, not Kyle's genius, and I like Kyle a lot, but I mean, I have to admit, I have my wonders if he doesn't prefer that slightly inferior quarterback, so they can be like, wow, look at how amazing Kyle did with an average quarterback. 3 NFC championships and a Super Bowl appearance in 4 years. Yeah, there's reasons to question that, whether he really does want Trey Lance, especially the way he played Trey Lance in 2022. running him so much between the tackles, which is ultimately how he got hurt. Albert Breer came out with this narrative that like, oh, the Niners were willing to, lose to let Trey Lance develop, but the actions dictated or, said exactly the opposite of that, that it looked like Kyle felt like the only way to win with Trey was to run him, and he wasn't willing to develop him and let him throw, not to call the same plays that he calls for Jimmy G and for Purdy. So, yeah, there's a lot of evidence to say that Kyle doesn't want Lance to be the guy.
Right. And my whole thing on that was more so just to stop the conversations that we're having every offseason about the quarterback position, right? And I'm pretty sure, you on your channel, myself as well, and probably I see my guy Johnny Dale in the chat. Make sure that, you guys check out his YouTube channel. Plenty of great insight, terrific quarterback mind, understands the X's and O's and everything inside and out. So check out Johnny Dale's Football Academy YouTube channel. But he said Kyle wants to win. That's it. If he gets credit, cool. If not, fine. Now, I definitely think that's the case. Everybody, he just wants to win. I think he's very competitive. It's the way that he goes about it, and he has done exceptionally well. His offense, you see everybody else in the NFL starting to kind of gravitate more towards that type of football as well, where it's kind of like, man, I'm interested to see how many fullbacks we start seeing running around. But I did see a couple guys like quarterback trainers and some other guys say Kyle feels like and wants to be the smartest man in the room. And that's the only, not my pushback on if he wants to win, which of course he does, but he wants to win, but it's like, it's got to be like my way. Like it's got to be his way. And I mean, a lot of that has worked. Like look what he's did, 3 NFC championship games and the Super Bowl over the last 4 years. I talked about this with Brian Peacock the other day. And my question to him was, do you think he'll have to like something catastrophic will have to happen, like just lose, and maybe need a change of scenery before he changes that small thing that, or might be a big thing that's going to get him over the top to actually win? He's been
Yeah, I mean,
close.
I feel
You
yeah.
a throw away, or 10-point lead away, or all your quarterbacks getting injured. Like he's been very close. But do you think there's one thing that's kind of like holding him back to where it's like, okay, this is now the best version of me because I actually allow some people to help me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with Kyle, in my opinion, is that he wants a quarterback to fit his system rather than taking the quarterback he has and fit his system around the quarterback. Right. So, yeah, I think that's a major. I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of Kyle, but that doesn't mean that he can't improve. He's not, made some questionable decisions. As I mentioned, quarterback, 3rd-round running backs would be another one that I would throw out there. Trey Sermon, TDP obviously is still TBD, to be determined, but so far hasn't lived up to his 3rd-round billing. I hope he does. So Kyle has some shortcomings, and he may need to either trust a QB to do things a little differently than he wants, or craft his scheme. Although, I mean, I guess that's not totally fair because, to be honest, Kyle did craft his scheme to Jimmy G a little bit in 2017, right? We got Jimmy at the trade deadline, and Jimmy practiced for a few weeks, and we brought him in when we were 1-10, and Jimmy famously went 5-0. And my understanding is that Kyle sort of did hybridize his system to incorporate more elements of the New England Patriot system, more shotgun, less, play action from under center where you're turning your back to the line of scrimmage. And Jimmy G did pretty well like that. And then when Kyle made Jimmy fit into his system, that's when Jimmy was sort of thinking, he was like panicking after the first read. And part of that was after the ACL too. So it's hard to say whether it was Kyle's making Jimmy fit into his system or the ACL. But I think there was a little evidence of that in 2018 before Jimmy tore his ACL too. So I'm not going to say Kyle will never do it, but I would like to see him do more of that.
Yeah, I recently brought up some comments from Donovan McNabb, RG3, and now, like you said, with Jimmy Garoppolo, and you kind of listen to some of the things that they say about Kyle and how he's making the quarterback fit into his scheme as opposed to, really tailoring something that might be a little bit more in between what he did with RG3 and his actual system, right? It almost feels like if you can't do it this specific way that Brock Purdy can do it, that Matt Ryan can do it, if you can't do it that the way I see it, then I'm going to go way over here, and now we're going to run this drastically. I won't say vanilla, but vanilla in the sense of what his offense truly is, version of his offense that's really scaled way back. Do you kind of get that sense? I know. Listen, a lot of people are going to hear us right now talking about Kyle Shanahan. I don't think you, or I definitely, I know I haven't. I'm not saying that this guy isn't a great coach. We're just trying to figure out how do the 49ers get over that hump, right? Like how, and is Kyle, is there a way that he can kind of get better? And we're talking about better than, we're talking about that beating the Andy Reeds and, beat like that's what we're talking about here. Where I'm not comparing him to, a coach with the Chicago Bears or a coach with the Cleveland Browns. Like we ain't comparing him to those guys. He's ahead that. Like, how are you going to beat the big dogs that got the big dog quarterbacks, right? Like the guys that are going to. And I've talked a lot about Andy Reid and what I felt like Andy Reid did with Patrick Mahomes, where I felt like Mahomes wouldn't fit with Kyle because of his style of play. Now, Justin Herbert, he'd be amazing with Kyle. He'd be amazing with him. Mahomes, he's a little bit more of a second reactionary type quarterback. Like he wants to, if it's not there right now, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna make a play on the move. I think that would, like Kyle would hate that about him, and you kind of have to let him do his thing. Do you think that some of these quarterbacks, like even a Jimmy Garoppolo, where Jimmy, I remember him saying, and we've heard Brock say it, but Jimmy said it, "Hey man, I just throw where Kyle tells me to throw." And I'm like, I hear you, and I know how this offense works, and it's great. But man, sometimes you can be a little bit more of a playmaker. Maybe that'll help him. And I'm not sure if that's what Kyle truly wants.
No, Kyle doesn't. I mean, I think we've seen enough to say Kyle wants someone who does what he says, even if the quarterback sees something that looks better. The famous example was in the Raider game New Year's Day, where Purdy went through like 4 reads to hit Kittle in the back of the end zone, and Kyle was mad at him because he had missed the first read to Jennings, who was probably open for a TD too, and it's probably true, but it's like, come on, the kid just went through massive reads, and what he did with Kittle, getting him all the 7 TDs in 6 games, is just incredible. When Kittle didn't have more than 6 TDs in 16 games, 5 16-game seasons, that's super amazing. That transformation of Kittle turning into the scoring beast we all had hoped he could be all along.
We got Judd in the chat right now, and he says Andy Reid didn't let Alex Smith just run his own stuff. Easy to do when you have Mahomes. I think we saw the best version of Alex Smith with Andy Reid for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason, like that was the best version of Alex Smith, best season of his life, of his career. What changed? What was so much different between maybe the other guys that he had played with or whatever? Maybe it was players. Maybe it was Tyreek Hill and having Travis Kelce, and maybe that's what it was. But ultimately, I thought that we saw a much freer version of Alex Smith. He was throwing the ball down the field. I mean, I saw big balls I never saw big balls down the field. Pause to from Alex Smith, and we saw a much better version, like playing really good football. And I remember when it was a game against was it down big to the Colts, and I know it's kind of ended up being a shootout. I've never seen that from Alex Smith. Never. Like that was the best version of him that we'd ever seen. So to say, yo, it's easy with Mahomes. I mean, I saw it with Alex Smith as well. And then Mahomes just was better. Like he just was more physically gifted and really took that to the next level. Just my opinion, though. Just my opinion.
No, no, I love it, and it's like, yeah, Andy Reid's a great coach, clearly, and Mahomes is arguably the best quarterback right now, and one of the better ones all time so far in his career. And I think you really have to plan to beat them in the Super Bowl if you want to get that number 6 ring that we're all hungry for, because they've been there 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, and they've won 2 of them. So if you're not planning to beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, then you're probably not planning to win it.
I think this is a great comment right here from my guy Jedi. He says Andy is 22 years older than Kyle. He started winning, and he just started winning the big one. That's a lot of experience, and that's really kind of plays to my point where I'm like, Kyle's situation here is there things that he has to learn from here to understand. Then somewhere else, I have to do things slightly different. I have to be this better version of myself as a coach, as good as I was, as great as I was in these different areas. This one thing held me back, and he might just have to figure that somewhere else. And that was it. So, however long it takes Kyle to figure that out, and that's what puts him over the top. I don't know exactly what that. I feel like he's wound a little tight, and he's a little controlling. And I think once he kind of lets go a little bit and understands, hey, you don't have to be everything. And yeah, I heard the comment before about it was from one of his coaches. The scheme makes the quarterback. The quarterback doesn't make the scheme. And I was like, I get it, but that is a tough way to continuously win. Let's talk about some good landing spots. And you brought up a few, but for Trey Lance, and we're talking about auditioning, right? Training camp, preseason, 49ers all in on Brock Purdy. So it's like, all right, we love Brock Purdy. And hell, the way the media is talking right now, they must love Sam Darnold. So Trey Lance hypothetically is auditioning, plays extremely well. He's kind of lighting it up. He becomes kind of dispensable in the sense of you like these other two quarterbacks. Do you think that the Minnesota Vikings would potentially be a landing spot? And I say them, you got Kirk Cousins, but he's on the last year of his contract. You have who else do they have? They have Nick Mullins, and then they have Jaron Hall. He's a rookie out of BYU. But do you think there's a scenario that maybe Minnesota halfway through the year they're like, man, this just ain't it. We're not good right now. Maybe we should look into Trey Lance. I liked how he looked in preseason. Let's trade for him, let him play out the rest of this year, and then they'll have an option to kind of pick up his fifth-year option as well.
Yeah, Minnesota makes sense. He's from Minnesota. He wanted to go to University of Minnesota. I imagine he grew up rooting for the Vikings, so that makes some sense. Like you said, Kirk Cousins last year of his deal. He could maybe learn some under Kirk. I don't believe that Trey Lance will be traded. I don't think he should be, but like we said, if Purdy's really back and they do really like Darnold, then $9 million. He has our fifth highest cap hit right now. After we extend Bosa, he'll probably have our fourth highest cap hit for the 2023 season. That's an incentive to get Trey Lance off the books. I hope it doesn't happen, but I could see why it might. I would just say, regarding the Trey Lance, Darnold has the edge thing. Be careful about that, Croc. That's coming from national media. They said that Mac Jones was going to be number 3 overall. They said Trey Lance would be traded during the 2023 draft. And, they weren't at OTAs and they weren't at minicamp. And the guys that we know that were there for all 4 of the open practices said basically dead heat, or anyone who picked a guy actually said slide edge to maybe Lance. So I'd just be careful. And also, so if they weren't there in OTAs and they weren't there at minicamp, then we're saying it's a leak that they got it from, or they're making it up. And if it's a leak, Kyle will squash it if it's something that doesn't benefit the organization. And if he's letting it run, it's because like he let the Mac Jones thing run. It's because it's what he wants. And so if he wants that narrative that Darnold has the edge, I think that's because they want to move Darnold. That's what I think. I think that, you kill Trey Lance's trade value if you say Darnold's a better quarterback than Trey Lance, but here, take him, give us something for him. I don't think that makes sense to me. And people will say, oh, the front office doesn't lie. They don't lie. But just look at what John Lynch said last year about Trey Sermon, where he said, oh, he had one of the best camps he's ever had, or the best of any player in camp, or something along those lines. And David Lombardi reported it. And within a week, we had cut him. And I think we were just trying to pump and dump him. And so if we do think Purdy's ready, and if we do think that we brought so the national media also likes to run with this, oh, well, we grabbed Sam Darnold the first day of free agency. Well, that must mean that we don't trust Trey Lance. And I'm saying, I think they don't trust that Purdy will be ready week 1. They're saying it. They're saying we're hopeful, and we are hopeful, and I'm hopeful. But, a lot of doctors have said that they have their doubts. And the sample size is just so small with NFL quarterbacks who have had this actual surgery, the UCL repair plus internal brace. We've talked about him a little bit on the show. The only other NFL QB to have that is Nick Mullins. And do we know that he's 100% 2.5 years later? Hard to say. He didn't play a regular season game for a full year after he injured that thing. It was literally December 20th, 2020 till December 20th, 2021. He came in as the Bears backup against the Raiders, played poorly, 147 yards in a loss to the Raiders. And hasn't played a regular season game since. So, like, do we know that Nick Mullins is even ready 100% 2.5 years later, let alone 6 months after what we're hoping for Purdy? I just think if we do believe that Purdy's ready, I still think we want Lance as our backup and that we might be trying to move Darnold.
All right, Ted. Final question for you. I know you have to get out of here, and then I'll get to some fans and put the link in the chat so you guys can join on live as well. Matter of fact, I'll put the link in right now if you want to come on live and talk about just some of your thoughts. Again, this show is for the people. It's the people's show. So you come on live if you have some thoughts on anything we've talked about. All right, but final question for you. Your gut. Trey Lance, a 49er, come week one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at least till the trade deadline. We got to see Purdy in some regular season games and make sure he's the same Purdy as 2022. And I just don't think we're going to get enough of that in preseason. And, even then in preseason, it's usually just a series or a quarter at the most for a starting QB. So absolutely, Trey Lance is a Niner week one. I would be surprised almost if he wasn't, by the end of the season. I think if we move him, it would be at the end of the season. But I'm not going to shoot down everything you said. I think that there's a chance we move him at the trade deadline. I just hope we don't. And just a quick word to the Lance haters. They like to point out all the things that Lance has, struggled with, the Bears game, the Cards game. The Bears game was in a monsoon. Lance was not the biggest reason we lost. Our defense was terrible. Our offensive line was terrible. Debo fumbled inside the 20. But, really, they're pointing all this stuff, and no one's saying Lance has been great. What we're saying is we believe he can be great, and we need to see what we have. And so that's the big thing I'm just trying to say to people, not like, he's proved that he's great already. But, we definitely haven't seen him with CMC. We've barely seen him with Kittle, and we've barely seen him when the team wasn't struggling. Most of his starts were when we started 2021 3-5 and 2022 3-4. And, the one time when he played, when the team was doing well against the Texans, he won. Granted, it's the Texans, I get it, but he had a hell of a game. 116 passer rating, 23-7 win. So anyway, that's sort of my thing. I don't think he'll be gone. I think we'd be crazy, but we'll see what happens. It's not impossible for sure.
All right, Ted, you guys make sure you follow Ted on Twitter at TedH6 and also subscribe to his YouTube channel, Ted Talks Ball. Ted, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Crockett. It's been a real pleasure, and love to come back anytime or have you on my show anytime you're ready.
Yes, sir. Anytime. All right. Appreciate my guy Ted coming through. We're going to get to the chat now and see who calls in. Here's the link right now. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit that like button. One thing that Ted just said, which is a great point. I also said this to one of my buddies as well. There are a lot of people that push back on people thinking that Trey Lance is this great quarterback. I ain't never said that. I'm just saying I don't know what he is, and I would like to know what he is. But I'm not making any sweeping judgment. And, I get pushed back on this even on Locked On 49ers comments where it's like, Croc, you don't like, look, I just want to know what somebody is before I crown somebody or say, hey, this guy just doesn't have it. So can I just see a little bit? There's things that I like from this guy. There's things I like from that guy. There's things I don't like from this guy. There's things I don't like from that guy, right? You can go throughout the roster and I can tell you that, right? Spencer Burford. I think Spencer Burford could potentially be a good right guard. I think Spencer Burford also rotated in and out with Daniel Brunskill throughout the season, right? So, it doesn't mean I don't like him. It's just I just want to see more from Spencer Burford. As it pertains to Trey Lance, I've seen a lot of good things from him. I've seen a lot of good throws. I've seen a lot of ability. I think his running ability is a little underrated, the way people talk about it. Like he's like this statue's back there or something. I'm like, no, he's done some good things. But I also think he's probably not a great designed runner, right? Oh, man, needs to be more consistent with his accuracy. Why does the game need to slow down? Some of the things my guy Greg Pinelli told me about Josh Allen. And I just would like to see, can he do it or not? And can I see it in multiple straight games, which I might not ever. So, there's a lot of people that think that, People think Trey Lance is a great quarterback, and maybe there's a part of the fan base that does. But I know me, I do not think Trey Lance is a great quarterback. I just want to see and know for sure if he is or if he isn't. That's all. That is all. So it's really weird that it's like, oh, he's this, he's that, or this guy is this and that. And it's like, you don't know because I done seen all this one way or the other. I saw somebody in the chat, and I'm gonna get to some of these comments as well. When it comes to like some of the guys, it's so easy to say Mahomes, and I use him because I don't think that Kyle would have liked the way Mahomes played. Oh, it's easy when you have Mahomes and to let him free because look how great he is. Nobody thought he was great coming out of college. Well, I did. Eric Crocker did, got the tweets. All right. But nobody thought he was just this great, can't miss guy coming out. And go back, and I challenge anybody. The year he took over as starter, the year Mahomes took over as starter, that training camp, go read what those Chiefs writers were saying about all the turnovers, about all the missed throws. His coach just said, whatever, I'm going to let him play through it. It's there. He was throwing more interceptions than anything else. He had like a streak of practices where it was not good. I'm talking about training camp that year, not his rookie year. Not his rookie year. The next year, like when he was taking over as starter, throwing interceptions, having bad practice. They were writing about it. You can actually pull it up. And guess what? Let him play through it. So I've seen that version. I've seen other guys come out hot, come out swinging, right? Dak Prescott, sweet, whoo, good. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but if I had to guess off the top of my head, it was somewhere around 26 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, or 5, something like that. Only lost 2 games. They put that last loss on him, so on paper it says 13-3. But he only played 1 drive, and then they sat him down, and Tony Romo played the rest of the game against the Eagles because the Cowboys had their spot kind of locked up, right? So 13-2 as a rookie, played exceptionally well. Next year, some weird things happened. Lost his running back, Ezekiel Elliott. Lost Tyron Smith. It got shaky. 8-8. How do y'all view him now? He was amazing as a rookie, only going to get better. Like, oh my goodness, right? So I don't rush to crown anybody. I'm not going to rush to crown Brock Purdy. That's not me saying I don't like Brock Purdy. That ain't me saying, oh, Brock Purdy's this trash. No, like Brock Purdy. Can I see more? Can I see more? Trey Lance, some good stuff, some shaky stuff. Can I see more? And I don't understand what's the rush on judgment on any of these guys. Y'all, if the Eagles would have judged Jalen Hurts when he got benched for Nate Sudfeld, and that would have rolled into the next year, he never would have been as good as he is. If the Bills, who were coming off of a playoff appearance, would have just said, first 4 games, Josh Allen, ass. I mean, look at him now. He's their franchise quarterback. So the whole rushing the judgment one way or the other, it's really weird to me, and I really don't do that shit. All right, here we go. Coming on now. I got my guy Twin. Twin, how you doing, man?
Man, what's cracking, my guy? How you doing?
I gotta address this. Jalen have 5 years D1, bro. What does that mean? What does it mean? Because he have 5. If he have 5 years of D1 football or 4 years or whatever, played at Alabama, did all these experiences, but you come in the NFL and you're trash, you're still trash. If you have all that experience, and what does that say? If you have all this experience and you come in and you still, it still looks weird, then as opposed to a guy who doesn't have the experience and is up and down, like what are we doing? What are we talking about? Like, what are you talking about, Kai? So he has all this experience and comes in and still plays ass. Let him play because he played 5 years of college. That don't even make sense. My bad, man. How you doing?
What's cracking? Now, you Gucci. And just to speak on that comment someone just said, I heard this spoke about the other day. So Trey had all this lack of experience, correct? We was in the win or the season is over game. This person who only threw the ball 400 times in college was able to go in the game and win in a playoffs atmosphere after this team beat the shiny new toy and Justin Herbert, and this team had beat several teams 3 weeks in a row. Like, they were actually playing really good ball as far as the Houston Texans. So all of a sudden, that doesn't matter anymore. He was fresh, he was right, but he was able to go out there and execute. You know what I'm saying? And I think you can speak to this, Crocky, like having practice reps and in-game reps are totally two different monsters.
They are.
You've been a hooper and you play football like I did. You got practice players that you can see on your squad. Y'all be on the bus like, bro, in practice you be out here busting heads, man. You be Randy Moss and folks, or you be locking dudes up. But man, you get in the game, bro, and them bright lights hit you, and you just like the talent, the natural ability to high point the ball just disappear. And you as an athlete who played in on all levels, you know what that means. You've been in that locker room, right? Like, can you speak to that for a little bit?
Some guys, and I talked to this. She's called a sports. What do they call it?
Sports psychologist.
Uh, the word what? It's like sports a mental coach. Dang, I forget the. It wasn't psychologist, but it's along those lines. All right, but essentially, it was just people just handle pressure different in different ways, and then sometimes something can click to where they kind of get over that hump. But she's someone who like talks through to the players to get them to understand maybe why they handle things a certain way, and if something needs to be fixed, etc. All right. But it's kind of weird. I mean, I've seen it. Guys that practice great and then don't play as well. There's some kind of anxiety that they might get in practice, and also you got to remember too certain things about practice. A little bit more of a controlled environment. What if you just know the person across from you so well that you just always dominate them, right? Like I remember going up against and it was pretty cool because I kind of grew up watching Braylon Edwards. But I remember watching Braylon Edwards, and then all of a sudden like I'm practicing against him. But I knew all the things that he liked to do. So when we would do one-on-ones, and I ain't gonna act like I did a ton of one-on-ones against him, but we had about 3 one-on-one goals. He had 0 catches on me. 0. But I was able to see it and everything how he moved. So like that, because I had some level, again, we're talking about training camp, practice, one-on-ones, some level that didn't mean that, oh, I'm just gonna be balling in the game. So I think there's some of that to it.
For sure, man. And another thing is like, I think we have. I don't know why people think like if Trey just play, we just go lose consecutive games or just going to go through this horrible like losing streak. I spoke to this about the 2021 season where we lost for a whole month. I think it was from October to November. We didn't win not one game, bro. And we had Jim G as our quarterback, and we lost. Like it happens, but it's like, how do people extend the grace for this guy to lose 4 games in a row? We turned the season around. Debo kind of got in his bag. Kyle started getting his rhythm, and then they begin to play better. It's not like we're going to automatically just lose because we start Trey Lance. Kyle is a rhythm coach as well. Kyle kind of has to see what his teams does better, seeing how other opposing teams are playing him. And then once he started getting his little rhythm going on, he calls better plays. The defense get better. And another thing you can speak to is like, I think the offensive line coach said this during minicamp. He said we had 3 new guys on that line starting at the beginning of this year. They had to build continuity. We lost an All-Pro in Mac. We lost a Pro Bowler in Lincoln Thompson, and we had another what's my guy name playing right guard. Like those guys were gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you had one rookie, one second-year player that most people was like he was a bum or he was a bust because he didn't even play last year. Those guys were just getting incorporated to the offense, and so we got to use those types of context to like by the time week 6 happened, week 7 happened, these guys had got a little familiarity. They got to understanding what they do well, what they didn't do well. And that's why I say football is the hardest sport to play for as a team sport, because you got to get 11 players playing in unison. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So I just want to get your perspective on that as far as the offensive line as well.
So yeah, everything is about really like becoming a cohesive unit in the NFL, and it just happens in different ways. I'm really excited to see the offensive line this year as it pertains to Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford. Especially like taking that next step. Really, both of them. Aaron Banks played very well. Spencer Burford, can you take that like legit next step or a jump like we saw from Aaron Banks? The experience I feel like should help. And typically that's the case. The more you do something, the better you get at it. Whatever it is, like, that you do at your job or whatever, right? You get more comfortable at it. Me with podcasting, I start to get a little bit more comfortable with it. I got Gammon, he's gonna be coming on in a second. The more he comes on and talks, you can just see that he's more and more comfortable with doing it. And I think that's the case with NFL players as well. And what is very difficult, and it probably was difficult for Spencer Burford as well, when you kind of get yanked in and out. That's probably one of the most difficult things. And
Uh-huh.
essentially in a different way, but that's what Trey Lance has gotten. Where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I start and then I don't start for 10 weeks. And then I start and I beat Houston, and I don't get to like come back from that. Like I don't get like, man, I don't get to ride that wave. I don't get to ride uh that wave of
That
uh
momentum and
yeah,
confidence.
momentum of coming back in the locker room. Whoo, I'm the guy. Like we won, cool. Let me build on that. Oh, okay, I made some mistake. Okay, I can still build on that. Oh man, we won again. Okay, like you didn't get that. It's no, you could play again way next year. You got to sit for 4 more games or whatever it was, and then you got this game in a goddamn monsoon. And I hear people just calling him baby. It doesn't matter. Like that's extremely difficult to play in. And I saw somebody. I hope I started. Oh, I didn't start. And he said, well, Justin Fields played in that same like I didn't
Oh,
think Justin
just
Fields played good.
his numbers were horrible, boy.
Right? It was like it was the situation, it was the circumstance. Like it was a tough setting to play in. And there were a couple broken plays that went Chicago's way in the 49ers. Unfortunately, Trey Lance included, missed that throw. You had a fumble inside the 10-yard line, and it kind of derailed things a little bit. Then the monsoon, like it was a tough game. But then you come back, and that was the first time that we got to see Trey start back-to-back games. And what does he do? Comes out and looks pretty comfortable. Throws a couple passes, boom, 31 yards. Brandon Ayuk throws a ball where he had a free runner at him and he completed a slant. And again, very specific because we only see him throw so many passes. But it was like, I'm starting to like, okay, can we see him continue to do? Oh, he's hurt, broke his ankle. So it's just it's been tough for Lance. And again, this whole thing is Trey auditioning for other teams. I'm very aware he may never take a starting snap as a San Francisco 49er quarterback again in a regular season. That is a very realistic possibility, and partly because of how well Brock Purdy played last season. The other part of it, got to stay healthy when you have those opportunities, and that's a big part of why we're having this discussion as well.
For sure, for sure. My last thing, I think you can speak to this, Croc. Remember that time you did a fancy show last year? Or no, it was the draft, right? You
Yeah,
had already been podcasting for a while on your own show, but then you did the live show and they had the different lights in there and so on and so forth. You like, okay, it's a little bit different right here, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And you gotta get adjusted to it just because you can feel that the light a little bit bright might make you a little sweat a little bit, you know what I'm saying? You turn to Patrick Ewing in the fourth quarter, you know what I'm saying? You press fire
yeah,
a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And you get the same feeling sometimes even with people when they hop online with you on live. It's like they might be in the chat room just like shooting all types of shots. But then you say, okay, well come on live, and next thing you know, they looking like and they got the deer in the headlight situation. You like, man, you
yeah,
was talking all that cash money, you was feeling yourself and so on and so forth. But now, your nostril flaring, you're stuttering a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And so that's just a natural emotion, you know what I'm saying? It just, but after time, do it more often, you become more comfortable. And that's just how I think Trey Lance, he was a 21-year-old dude that we drafted. He only 23 now. And I think Kyle still noticed that this boy has more potential to grow into. And we just got to be a little more patient. But
yeah.
yeah, man, that's my 2 cents on the situation.
All right, man. I appreciate you calling in.
Peace out.
All right, we got this comment, and it's funny just thinking back to that Chicago game because I was there and what it looked like. And there's a lot of different ways to look at it and different ways on how you kind of evaluate the game. Ultimately, Justin Fields did an amazing job. Justin Fields did an amazing job of just figuring out how to win the game. Regardless of anything else that was going on, regardless of the elements, he figured out a way to win the game. All right. I see this right here, but Fields played on an inferior team, still got the W. He also played better than Lance. And just my 2 cents. And y'all know I always keep it a buck. I think that Fields made two better plays that big time like impacted and swung the game in his direction in the sense of being in the sense of winning the game. Now, for blown coverages, whatever it happened, but that was a terrific job. I do not think he just on a down and down basis played better than Trey Lance. I don't think he threw the ball better. I don't think he ultimately ran better. All right, what Trey Lance have like 50 yards? Like I don't think he ran better. I don't think he threw the ball better. He made two terrific plays that ultimately kind of broke the 49ers back. So if you want to say off those two plays he just played better, then cool. But if you're saying just watching those two guys on the field at the same time in the same conditions, that this guy just played better than that guy, I have to disagree with what I saw. I saw Trey Lance play look better from the pocket, throw better, make better throws down the field, deep over routes, layer throws with that heavy ass wet ball. I thought Trey Lance played better, but did not make the better plays that Fields made to actually win the game. If we are talking about as if like watching two prospects. As far as inferior team, man, when you play in those type of elements, it definitely levels the playing field. It levels the playing field. When you got that kind of sloppy, wet, and I don't think people truly, and I don't know what it looked like on TV, but I'll tell you what I saw in person. In person prior to the game, it prior to the game, it it rained so hard. I don't even want to say rain. It stormed. It stormed so hard that I flew to Chicago. I'm out there. I want to see Soldier Field. I looked to my bro, and I call my bro right now. He'll tell you. I said, "We ain't going to this game, bro. Let's just watch it at a bar." That was how bad it stormed before the game. I ain't seen nothing like it. Like just like a game in that type of. I'm like, hell no. So then we get to the game and it lightened up. But for the most part, most of that game, it it rained or was off and on rain, drizzle, whatever you want to call it. It was very wet. And then the monsoon came. How whatever on the in the fourth quarter, and I don't know. I never went back and watched that game on TV, but whatever it looked like to y'all on TV, it looked worse in person. We couldn't even see the field. There was a time I couldn't even see the players. Couldn't even see the players. I'm at the game watching. And it's like, damn, like it rained. It was tough. It was tough. Ryan says facts. He was there. Like it was tough. So I saw somebody say that's an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's the reality of it. The weather is not an excuse. It's the reality of it. It was terrible conditions, and they had to figure it out. And Justin Fields did a good job on two plays to figure it out. It looked crazy. All right, here we go. Got my guy Gammon coming on. Gammon, good morning, or good morning, good
Yeah,
evening. How you
I
doing?
depending on where you never know. I'm in the military. Could be in South Korea or whatever. I'm not though. I am in Tennessee where it's a crisp 99 degrees, but the feel is 116 degrees.
That's what I'm dealing with. Let's hold on. Let's see, because I'm dealing with something similar to that right now in Monticello, Arkansas. So it's 100 degrees,
Okay.
but with the humidity, it feels like 108. So I'm right there with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did want to do a quick shout out to what's up to 49er minded. I saw you give me the what's up, but I can't reply back once I'm in the green room. I did also too for everybody in chat, and if you are watching this after this has gone live and you're just rewatching this on YouTube, if you can type a 1 if you want Croc to keep facial hair, and then type a 2 if you want him to be clean shaven. There seems to be some kind of back and forth on that.
It's coming back, man. I mean, again, I messed up, but it's starting to grow in. Another week, I'll be back with my beard. Another week.
Another week. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I did want to talk about was, I'm not, I'm not really too worried about Sam Darnold taking over. It's not just his interceptions that are a problem for me. I really feel like the biggest issue are the fumbles. That was a big thing that was killing Jimmy Garoppolo too. It wasn't just that he would throw 2 interceptions a game, which was a thing that we all harped on, but it was also too is the one fumble or that he would also too have. And it was just like between those two things, it was just killing plays. Even if you recovered that fumble, it still just killed that play. He actually, what ended up happening was then Jimmy Garoppolo started throwing only maybe one interception once a game or every other game, and then just stopped fumbling, like just that ball security. And I felt like that's something when we talk about ball security with Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, because I'm not going to simp or fan for somebody like that, but they both have that in spades. I mean, I don't see them losing the ball too often. Also, too, in reference to that Chicago game, and again, I like to be a facts over feelings kind of guy. So I'm not making this as, I don't want someone to misconstrue this next statement as, oh, I'm making excuses for Trey Lance. Honestly, this is just not what I thought was going to happen. Even when we had like Judas Priest or whatever his name was in
Man,
here, that was rough. By the way, big ups to you for doing all those burpees. Man, I salute to you, because that was a tough. That would have been tough for me to do, but I
I'm a
was
man
really
of my
glad.
word.
You are. But in the Chicago game, these two things I wasn't expecting to happen. Number one, the Debo fumble. That was number one. And number two, and I can't remember this, Croc. I don't know if you could actually see it with the amount of rain or that was going on, but who allowed Pettis to get that touchdown? Like, if you would have told me Pettis would have scored a touchdown, one of the most, who shies away from contact against one of the most physical teams in the NFL, I just would have been like, how the heck is this happening? But that fumble in the end zone and then that Pettis touchdown is just not something I would have anticipated.
It was a blown assignment. So blown assignment. All right, here we go. Ultimately, when Justin Fields scrambled to the left, the 49ers do a lot of spot dropping and they kind of read the quarterback's eyes. So the defense shifted with him. Now, once the defense shifted with the direction that he was going, the flow of Fields, Pettis just stayed backside. So he just kind of like sat in this area, kind of hoping, hey, maybe the quarterback will see me. It's reminiscent of, if y'all remember years ago, Colin Kaepernick, where he like rolled to his left and then all of a sudden he turns and throws the ball all the way across to Frank Gore. Gore catches it and ends up running in for a touchdown. But it was like, well, why was Frank Gore so wide open? Well, it was like it was the moving to the left from Colin Kaepernick. And essentially that's what happened. It looked like Justin Fields was maybe going to pull the ball down and run. He starts kind of going to the left. Maybe he's going to throw, whatever. And then he just kind of looks and it's like, wow, everybody shifted with me. Nobody's on Pettis. And Pettis ends up going and scoring. So I think if a coach were to be like pinning on one guy, it would be on one of the linebackers or Hufanga, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, man.
Like, but it's tough because if you're playing zone, everybody think like, oh, zone, you typically are responsible for a guy that comes into your area. Like you can like attach to him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't really in a guy's area. So nobody really attached to him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it wasn't just like, okay, we got a scissors concept. Somebody's gonna run with the post, and then the corner is gonna come under. He's gonna run with the corner, whatever. It wasn't that simple. It was everybody shifted this way, and this guy that kind of wasn't in nobody's area, like he just was sitting there. So that was how it happened.
Yeah, and in basketball, we kind of refer that to as like cherry picking, but I guess he just kind of just sat in a spot.
He was
just,
cherry picking. He cherry picked.
Absolutely.
And was smart for it, and probably shifted and probably won the game because of it. So,
that was the thing. Out of
play.
all the things that happened, it was knowing that Judas Priest was going to be on the show the following day, and then Pettis. I didn't want to look at his Twitter, just knowing how happy he was.
And a great job by Justin Fields to find him, because most of the time quarterbacks, they don't get back to that backside.
Yeah, absolutely. I also too, I want to talk about why because sometimes we get caught up in the moment, but I wanted to kind of address, because sometimes we get kind of carried away with the amount of information that we're blasted across on social media. And it's one of the things I like to do, because I hate it when I see other 49ers fans distressed, or some of them start like hating other people or front office or whatever, just because I feel like information gets mucky after a while because of everyone's conjuncture on the matter, right? There's just sometimes too many opinions that we take as facts instead of just like, that's just somebody's opinion. But one of the reasons why we got Sam Darnold was at the conclusion of the season, a lot of 49ers fans were wanting the 49ers front office to make sure that we brought in a veteran quarterback, because we didn't just go through 3 quarterbacks. Everyone says we went through 3 quarterbacks. Well, we went through 4. right? With Johnson out, that was our fourth quarterback. We were really going to be on our fifth, but we wanted somebody with that experience, that leadership. And so the 49ers brought in two, Allen and then Darnold. The other thing too is I'm not really too, and I kind of put this in a super chat, but I put it in as true or false, right? I put true or false. Our week 1 starter won't be our week 8 starter. And for me, I put this as true because one of the biggest things here too, the reason why I don't think that Trey Lance is going to get traded is that when you look at what was it, the NFLPA released a league-wide report card in which 1,300 players were pulled, right? And the 49ers did actually really well. They got pretty much A's or a B plus in every single category, -1.
Quarterback.
No, it was it was like for things for like the nutrition, weight
Oh,
room, strength staff.
their
It was the hold on, I'm sorry.
health. Their like medical part.
Yeah, it was for the survey, the NFLPA survey. And so the lowest score that we got ended up being the training room, right? And the training room is a crucial area for players to rehab and recover. The tubs in the rehab pool were viewed as small, and their lack of tables and space in the training room itself. So it sounds like when these guys start getting nicked up and banged up, there's not even enough tables for everyone to see and take care of them. And I've been in the Army. It'll be about 15 years this August 6th. But for the first 10 years of that, I was a line medic. I was on the line. I was and so I had like a whole platoon of guys. And so just, it's great when you have like a table and you're working in a hospital setting, right? But when you're in like a field environment and you don't have all those things, it's kind of crazy. So what boggles my mind is that Jed York is going to spend all this money to build all these boxes, right? All these big VIP booths. But when it comes down to the players like health, right, not a lot of money has been thank you, man, honestly. And I appreciate you typing in caps the entire time too. You know what I mean? So big ups to you too. But that's just one of my things is I think about it as my time as a medic, and I wish Medic Mike was here so he could speak on it. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have really great medical facilities, eventually the amount of care or what you can do for that is going to be a problem. And remember, Croc, there was a time when we were kind of cycling through our medical staff, training staff, back and forth. We're going like, maybe that's the issue. Well, after this survey, I'm starting to go like, well, maybe they don't really have the correct supplies and everything else that's needed. And so when people say like, well, Gammon, why are you being so negative and thinking whoever starts week 1 by the time we're in the mid-season won't be there for week 2? Well, I think that's also too why we have a lot of turnover, a lot of injury concerns is because we haven't done enough for our players in our medical facility. And I'm kind of wondering for you as a player, how important was that medical staff and then them having that great facility that was there for you when you
awesome. Great question. All right, and Gammon, I'm gonna put you backstage. I'm gonna bring somebody else up too, but I'm gonna answer your question with your way.
Okay.
All right. But that's a great question on the medical staff. Is weird because a lot of times you visit them after you get hurt, right? So I think for the 49ers, in the sense of like the players that are getting injured, it's the prevention part of it that to me would be the bigger question mark. So it's not so much what they're doing once they get hurt, and obviously like maybe that makes a difference with recovery and etc. But what are they doing to prevent the injuries? All right, what are they doing to say, you know what, we've been working on this, working on that. Now these guys are, their ACLs are more stable, or the joints around it, or their ligaments are stronger, and that's going to help prevent injuries. Or maybe Kyle Shanahan not putting players in certain positions. Would that help? And again, I mean, NFL, football in general, people get hurt. But I saw a video of, I want to say JT O'Sullivan did it, where he did like, he showed these examples of like the questions he would ask Kyle Shanahan based on play calling, maybe a guy not doing his job. He showed the plays when all the guys got hurt, showed the Jimmy G play, and how Deebo Samuel essentially didn't run the right route or wasn't on the same page as the quarterback. We're on the other side, and he shows Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey did it right. Deebo Samuel didn't understand he was a hot, took too long, boom, got hurt. and or Jimmy had to skip to the right, then he got hurt. Showed Trey Lance and the situation with Trey Lance and the play and how he didn't like the play design and how somebody was supposed to do something, he didn't do that. Trey Lance ends up running into a defensive lineman. Boom, he gets hurt. Talked about Brock Purdy, the play design of that. Uh, you know, big play action has this third string tight end trying to block a terrific edge rusher. Just the design of it. Now the design, and it's there. What Kyle wants, he's a mastermind when it comes to play calling and manipulation. It's there. Takes a tick too long, or maybe the block just wasn't made, and boom, he's hurt. So I think the bigger question would be how do 49ers prevent the injuries as opposed to do they have the things in place for recovery? Here we go. We have, let me see, I'm getting to some of these right here. Bammer T says nobody wants to trade for Trey. It is obvious. It's great. They don't want to trade for him right now. And that's why this is Trey Lance auditioning for NFL teams. They don't want him right now. Is there a chance he could do something in training camp, preseason, where a team would say, you know what? Hey, I like the way he's coming along. I could, we have an opportunity here for him to come in and play. Washington is like, hey, would you rather have Trey Lance or their quarterback is Sam Howell, right? And what would you have to give up for Trey Lance to figure out if you want him? Like, so is he auditioning for other teams? Nobody wants him now, or they don't want to give up whatever 49ers are asking for, but could he be auditioning for teams? So that was the kind of the basis of that conversation. And Dino T, unrelated, how we feel about the illegal forward handoff rule change. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. So maybe you can kind of explain it in the chat what that is. Crocker Lakers fan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Since Eddie Jones wore number 25. Yes. That was 1995. Yes. A year before Kobe got there. Y'all don't know about them Lakers. How they ended up winning, obviously you get Shaq, you know what I'm saying? But was it, we had to wait till what, 2000, 2001, 2, and 3? I think we three-peated. But it's like, there were some teams, man, with like Eldon Campbell, Rick Fox, Kobe, Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel. How we didn't win during that time? He says, Bammer says, what the hell, Croc? Sent you from Stockton. I am from Stockton. Look, there are, okay, perfect example. My guy in the chat, y'all might see him. His name is Twin. Let me see if I can pull him up here. Twin Maker, where is he at? Where is he at? I saw him in the chat. He came on. He just talked. All right, but he came on earlier and was talking. Ryan's brother is a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. Diehard. Matter of fact, Ryan comes on here and he'll talk, and all that. His brother has a huge Dallas Cowboy YouTube channel, probably like 100 subscribers or 100,000 subscribers. All right. Why are they different? Why are they fans of different teams? Why is Ryan a 49er fan, his brother a Cowboy fan? Why am my brother a diehard? My big brother, he's a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. He's from San Jose. My big brother's from San Jose. Went to Mount Pleasant High School. Why is he a big Dallas Cowboy fan and I'm a big 49er fan? So I don't think where you live, obviously it can impact it, but with me, it was my uncle. He liked the Lakers. Really weird though, because my uncle liked the Lakers, and that's why I started liking the Lakers. Now he says he's a Warrior fan, so there's somebody lying here, and it ain't me. But yeah, give me in the chat. Rock 5-0 in favor of rocking the facial hair. My wife, she would agree with that as well. Now here's the bigger question, Croc. Why are you USC and UCLA fan? So, okay, let's talk about it. Then we'll get up out of here. So originally, right, we're talking about as a kid. Again, as my uncle, man, who you like? We watching basketball on TV. UCLA basketball was on. So I started liking UCLA basketball. We're talking like the O'Bannon twins. We're talking about Toby Bailey, right? Back then, right? So I started like UCLA basketball. I also liked UCLA football. Like, so it was just, oh, UCLA basketball, okay, I'm supposed to be a UCLA football fan. So they had guys like Danny Farmer back then, right? Foster, the running back, was hyped when he ran for 300 yards. Now, in the game. Now, once I started kind of coming into my own, then I started liking uh it's like, man, like it was hard not to like USC, but I also rooted big time for Miami Hurricanes. I loved Miami Hurricanes. I loved everything that they did with their players and McGahee, and you had Frank Gore, and you had Antrell Roll, and you had Sean Taylor and Ed Reed, and I'm like, man, like these guys are sweet. I like these guys. So I liked Miami. And then when I went to college in the South, out here in Arkansas, I realized they don't mess with California. The way they talk about us playing football, all that. So then a guy who I've been a Miami fan for, I don't know, 15 years, I started to like, I can't really rock with Miami because of how these dudes in the South talk about the West Coast. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like everybody in the Pac-12. And obviously, like during that time, there was the Reggie Bush, and you're rooting for USC during that time. Rooting for USC against Texas because they represent the West Coast. Even though I like Miami or whatever, but I was a Pac-12 fan, and I'm still more of a Pac-12 fan than a USC fan. I try to like hitch to like one team, and this was when USC was still bad and got destroyed by Iowa, right? So we're talking about before Lincoln Riley. But I've always kind of had this love for USC, but ultimately I am a Pac-12 fan. Even though they're leaving, so now I don't know. I don't know what to do. Clearly, I'm not as big team college football fan as I am with my 49ers, Lakers, and San Francisco Giants. Love them. Love them. All right. Appreciate everybody that contributed to such a cool show. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody that tuned in. Shout out to my guy Ted. Shout out to Gammon. Shout out to Twin. Everybody that called in as well. Make sure you guys hit that like button and
subscribe to this video.
Yes, it's just talk. It's just talk. We're all trying to figure it out. My opinion not better than yours and whatnot, etc. Whatever. We're on here to just have fun, talk it out. What are our thoughts? Trey Lance, will he be good? Hell, I don't know. But I'm not ready to say he's trash. Appreciate everybody. Love all y'all. I'm about to go cook some burgers for my wife and kid. I'm out. Peace.